And people who work in Walmart, McDonald's, Burger King, Kmart, how can they live on what they earn? Union membership is the lowest in 60 years in the private economy. It's less than 10%. And I think it's not just Taft-Hartley, it's the non-enforcement of the occupational safety and health laws. 56,000 Americans die every year from exposure to toxics and other hazards and trauma in the workplace. That's almost 4 times the number of people subject to homicide last year in our country. Terrible toll there, terrible toll there. The parties will not, the Republican Democrat parties will not explicitly stand for universal health care. That's quite clear in listening to their statements and their disease and trauma. That's the key emphasis too. These are some of the reasons why the California Nurses Association, terrific progressive union, has endorsed this candidacy of Nader LeDuc, along with perhaps the most democratic national union of all, the United Electrical, Radio and Machine Workers Union, and other large union locals, including the Postal Workers and Teamsters locals in Seattle, Washington, and AFSCME 1108 in Los Angeles. Now, both parties endorsed and support the WTO and NAFTA, which subordinate, deservedly, which subordinate to the imperatives of international commerce, health, safety, considerations in the workplace, environment, marketplace, even existing regulations, as well as improved standards in these areas. That reverses the way we progressed in our country. Whenever we progressed environment, worker safety, consumer protection, motor vehicle safety, abolishing child labor, we basically said to corporations, your profit imperatives got to take second seat. You're going to have to adjust your commerce to these improvements in the health, safety, and economic rights of Americans. And WTO NAFTA reverses that completely. It's trade über alles in a system of autocratic, secretive governance that shuts out the press from the courts in Geneva, Switzerland, and has secret harmonization committees to bring our higher standards downward in harmony with lower standards overseas, because that's what the corporations want. Lower standards, lower costs, no matter what the price is paid by the people who suffer. The Green Party stands for the following: that the United States initiate the provided for 6-month notice to withdraw from GATT, WTO, and NAFTA, and renegotiate trade agreements to pull standards up, not pull standards down, and to do it in a full, open, democratic manner. Both parties ignore the need for the American people to control what they already own as a Commonwealth. You know, we own the public airways. We own 1/3 of America, the public lands. Workers own $5 trillion in pension funds. They don't control any of it. Imagine if through intermediate institutions, people controlled what they own. They'd have their own media to give creativity and voice to all the people in this country that want to improve their country, know how to improve their country, but can't communicate to a larger audience. And if we controlled our public lands, we could establish sustainable practices. We could establish multiple function to the use of these public lands instead of the function designed for them by the mineral companies and the oil and gas and timber and grazing interests. And just think if workers could control $5 trillion invested in corporations. A lot of pension funds invested in General Motors, General Electric, General Dynamics. A lot of investment. Now, either they will be able to increasingly control the misbehavior of those companies, or they can develop new investment outlets to use the workers' money for the workers and community benefits for where they live. Both, both parties do not address the rampant corporate commercialism that is moving in every nook and cranny of our society. Commercialism sweeping everything away in its path, making us feel like everything's for sale. It's like everything's for sale under a commercially dominated society. Our government is for sale. Our democracy is for sale. Our childhood is for sale to these corporate commercial exploiters of young children. Our human genes are for sale. Our personal privacies are for sale. Our right to choose a doctor or hospital of our own choosing, that's for sale. Our environment is for sale. But there's one thing that is not for sale, and that's the Green Party of the United States. Thank you. Commercialism is sweeping over our schools and our universities, blocking the establishment of civic curriculums where students can learn citizen skills, learn how to practice democracy, connect classroom with the community, concentrate on the reality of life instead of memorization and phony standardized tests that are absurd. Commercialism that distorts university research priorities to bend to the corporate imperative. Commercialism that compromises the independence of our faculty and the free exchange of scientific and other research findings. Commercialism that denigrates the humanities and the social scientists in favor of a massively trade school-dominated higher education curriculum. The Green Party pledges to enforce the antitrust laws of our land. Both Republican and Democratic parties have abetted the massive merger wave in the last 10 years among HMOs and hospital chains and agribusiness giants and telecommunication, cable Goliaths, drug company Goliaths, aerospace corporations, military contractors, oil companies, and massive media consolidation. All of these massive mergers would be unheard of 20, 30 years ago. The Democratic Party would have stopped them in a heartbeat. But now the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are taking money from all of these companies, and they are giving value received back. Most of them have never seen a merger they didn't like. The Green Party is serious about enforcing the antitrust laws, reducing concentration of corporate power in our country, reducing the pressures on valiant small businesses who are trying to give us better products, more organic food, more recycled products, more arts, more crafts, better service, and they've got these corporations on their back. We got to free small business in this country. And of course, both parties support the utterly failed war on drugs. Where 2/3 of the tens of billions of dollars do not go to rehabilitation of drug addicts. They go to militarizing and criminalizing addiction. We do not send alcoholics to jail, and we do not send nicotine addicts to jail, and we should not send drug addicts to jail. We should have them rehabilitated as human beings in need. The Rand Institute found that treatment was by far the most cost-effective remedy, 7 times more cost-effective than arresting and jailing, and 10 times more effective than interdiction, and 23 times more effective than trying to deal with drugs at their source instead of at the demand level. How many times do we have to have studies like this? And I ask those who support in government the failed war on drugs one question. What is your standard of failure? What conceivable standard of failure would you ever recognize before you revised this cruel, wasteful, and hazardous war on drugs that are endangering our communities, endangering our police, and leaving drug addicts without rehabilitation? The Green Party believes that the thin slice of life around our globe that sustains life on our globe, that few miles of air, water, and soil called the biosphere, must be given priority protection. We must do this by sustainable. We must do this for the rest of the world by setting an example, not being the biggest coal-burning country, the biggest nuclear power generating country. We want to set an example, the Green Party does, by setting examples, becoming the leading user of solar energy in the world. By setting zero pollution goals for motor vehicles and industrial activity. There are some companies that have already done that for themselves. The Interface Corporation in Atlanta, Georgia, zero pollution goal. They're on record, and they're moving toward it. Zero recycling. They're the second largest commercial tile and carpet manufacturer in the United States. And they said, we're going to go for zero pollution, and we're going to go for maximum recycling, reduce our costs, and respect the planet Earth. Why aren't they on the national evening news, huh? The Green Party favors more U.S. Department of Agriculture support for organic farming, one of the few ways farmers can make any money anymore. Much more regulatory scrutiny on the most tumultuous, brazen technology in the history of the world, the biotechnology industry that wants to convert the genetic inheritance of the world into their own 17-year monopoly patents. Imagine, this technology, this biotechnology industry has essentially no regulation, no ethical, no legal framework, and they basically want to control the genetic inheritance of the globe. That's a pretty immodest ambition, and one that must confront a political response with informed scientists, as those who founded the Council for Responsible Genetics in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We need to reassert civilized values over this industry. We also need to let our farmers, at long last, after George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and others grew this product, to at long last allow them to grow industrial hemp. Yes, our country can legally import industrial hemp from France, Canada, and China, but it cannot grow it here because Mr. Clinton, Mr. Gore, and General McCaffrey somehow believe that a plant that can give us food without chlorine, lubricants, medicines, and 5,000 other uses that have been developed over 5,000 years, that somehow that is a stalking horse for marijuana. Well, I have news for you, Mr. Clinton, Mr. Gore, and Mr. McCaffrey. At 1/3 of 1% THC, even President Clinton, smoking a bushel of industrial hemp, even if he inhaled it, he'd get no more than a stomachache. We need to highlight good businesses. new businesses that are really doing it right. And the Green Party intends to do that. Whether it's the Triple E version, a type of AAA that is ecologically benign and oriented. There's a magazine called In Business. In Business, it has all kinds of reports on these companies that are very little publicized. There's a effective and accurate way to diagnose long distance when general practitioners tell people, find symptoms in people with kidney diseases, for example, to diagnose these ailments by computer software programs, and nobody's picking that one up either. Yeah, there's just all kinds of ideas that are not being picked up because you don't have a political context to highlight them. A political context is not indentured to bags of money at fancy Washington dinner fundraisers. By the way, I just heard someone interested in that software diagnosis. The website is connectance.com. The Green Party, unlike the Republican Democratic Party, addresses the civil servants of our government by creating climates where civil servants, so maligned by political candidates for so long, can bring their conscience to work without fear of retribution or other sanctions. Civil servants, as in the Pentagon, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Department of Interior, and other departments and agencies, know far more about what is wrong and about how to make it right than most anyone else in the country, and they should be given the opportunity and the climate to do that. The Green Party supports a foreign policy that sides with the workers and the peasants in very concrete ways, supporting democratic movements, land reform, credit facilities, cooperatives, free independent trade unions. It's really important to redefine national security in a post-Soviet Union Cold War era. It's important to move while we have such a great opportunity as the dominant power in the world to move more aggressively for global arms reduction, the abolition of nuclear weapons, and to address the serious environmental degradation of our planet, the forests, the oceans, the land erosion, the contaminated water, to launch a massive program against malaria, tuberculosis, AIDS, and other infectious diseases that are spreading all over the world, often in drug-resistant fashion. That is a national security matter, and that's what we should define national security, environmentally and health-wise, and the abolition of poverty. Poverty and repression are national security priorities in a Green Party administration. How many opportunities our country has had and has foregone to lift the spirit and the vision and the stature and the status of people around the world who look to us for this kind of leadership, who saw the Statue of Liberty as a symbol. We have to recover that spirit. We have to think much more highly of our own significance as a nation. We have so much to offer to this world, to this tormented world, to the repressed and the damned and the disadvantaged and the starving, to the people who want a decent life. We have so much more to offer to this world, so much more for you, your young generation, to offer to this world than landmines and napalm and jet planes and tanks and other weapons of mass destruction which make up the global weapons trade. Supporting democratic movements around the world helps liberate the manifold genius of third world peoples, the genius that will be able to come forward, be able to find the solutions, be able to address the injustices. We know that we don't have all the answers, and certainly the IMF and the World Bank do not have very many answers either. But, but in Brazil, Paulo Freire had an answer. He taught he taught Brazilian peasants how to read and how to be literate in a few weeks in a way that was transferable to all other cultures and languages. Paulo Freire, that was not figured up here down the street by the IMF or the World Bank, was it? And then there was that great people's architect, the late Hassan Fathi in Egypt, who taught impoverished Egyptian peasants how to build small, elegant houses from the soil under their feet. That wasn't thought up either by the IMF or the World Bank to solve one of the world's most serious problems of inadequate housing. And how about those people in Bangladesh who put thousands of women into small businesses in their villages by providing them with microcredit, $100, $200 loans? That would be far too small for the World Bank to pay any attention to, wouldn't it? The Green Party recognizes that every major social justice movement in our history was made possible by a shift of more power to the people, away from the power that the few control. And it's way past time for a shift of power today from big business to the people. When slavery was abolished, shift of power. Women's right to vote abolished. Women's right to vote installed, that was a shift of power. Freedom to form trade unions by workers, shift of power from the industrialists to the workers. When the farmers started that progressive political movement, shifted power from the banks and the railroads to the farm area, and gave us political reforms for all Americans to enjoy to this day, 100 years later. Shift of power is essential contention of politics. That's what it's all about. If we don't have a more equitable distribution of power, there's no equitable distribution of wealth or income, and people who work hard will not get their just rewards. And the main way to shift power, if you had to have one reform, it's public funding of public elections. Public funding of public elections. Clean money. Clean money, clean elections. Clean money and clean elections to stop the nullification of your votes by special interest money. Just think of that. You go down to vote, you expect it to count. Millions go down to vote, they expect it to count, and the votes are cut off at the pass by fancy fundraising dinners all over the country where fat cats pay off politicians for present and future favors, and the politicians shake down the fat cats in a kind of combined symbiosis of legalized bribery and legalized extortion. And Senator John McCain condemned this again and again last year, along with Senator Russ Feingold, again and again. This campaign, our campaign has been conducted in an honorable and exemplary manner because we believe if you advocate reforms, you have to practice what you preach in order to preach what you practice. And here's how we've done it. We have campaigned around the country with citizen groups fighting for environmental purity, fighting against poverty, and fighting against racial profiling, and fighting for an urban revitalization policy, for affordable housing, for public transit, against subsidies for stadiums like the Boston Red Sox want up in Boston, fighting for a living wage, fighting to preserve our forests, fighting for all the things that people want and are trying to organize, but they have no political party on their side. Often their political parties are against them. This Green Party is on their side. It's campaigned with them in all 50 states since March. Connecting. When the political movements connect with civic movements, they are more authentic. They are less likely to betray the citizens. They know where they're coming from, and they know where they're heading. And that's what the Green Party pledges to do, to always campaign with the citizen groups on the ground trying to make this a society of fairness, justice, opportunity, and respect for future generations. Second, we do not take PAC money, soft money, corporate interest money, only individual contributions from all over the country, either by mail, by fundraisers that are really political house party dinners, and by transmission by generous donors, individuals, no axe to grind, over our website, votenader.com or votenader.org. That's the way we practice what we preach in order to be able to preach what we practice. It's not easy challenging the entrenched two-party system. They command the statutory barriers to get on the ballot for third parties. They command the money. They command the media. They command the phony debate commission that excludes significant third parties as candidates from being on a debate. And I pledge to you that after this election, we are going to establish next year a People's Debate Commission that is going to break the monopoly of this two-party controlled debate commission forever. When the debate commission excluded me with ticket in hand from an adjoining auditorium in Boston to watch the debate on closed-circuit TV so I could give an interview to Fox News on the premises. When they did that, I said to myself, this is really overreaching. The debate commission threw out the wrong guy. I sued them in federal district court in Boston 3 weeks ago. And by the time we finish with the depositions and release them to the media, the reputation of that debate commission, already low, will be lower than that of a crooked used car dealer. Now, all over the country, people who are supporting us are canvassing, they're organizing, they're having great meetings. They're declaring a moratorium on small talk with their relatives, friends, neighbors, acquaintances, and co-workers, and talking progressive talk, exciting talk, talk about the people shaping the future of our country and the world, not the corporations who are doing it every day. We hope that people who voted for Perot, for Senator John McCain, Bill Bradley, Jesse Ventura type voters, they all had one thing in common in addition to their other reasons for voting. And that is they wanted change here in Washington. It's gone too far here in Washington. The two parties have morphed into a corporate party representing the same business interests at the same dinners, at the same hotels, day after day after day. I remember a time when citizen groups could get something done in Washington because they had Democratic Senate and House committee chair people. They had people in the White House who were interested in change. I got the motor vehicle industry regulated so that cars and other motor vehicles are much safer, and the death rate went down like this. You couldn't do that today. This couldn't be done today. None of the progress citizen groups who are now being shut out of Washington policy-making circles, all the things that they did in the 60s and 70s, you can't get done today. And that's why we really have to go into the political arena, as Thomas Jefferson counseled us so many generations ago, that when we lose our government to the special interests, or as he called them, the moneyed interests, we have to go back and build a new progressive reform movement that remembers what Lincoln meant when he said, toward a new birth of freedom. I hope that those of you who are talking with others who are wavering on the least of the worst or lesser two evils syndrome will remind them of what Franklin Delano Roosevelt once said when he said, He said, each citizen is equal to each other citizen in the ballot booth where privacy reigns, and they can only answer to their conscience. And a vote for conscience, a vote for your hopes, a vote for your dreams, a vote for a higher expectation level of what our country can become and what it can mean to the world. Those are the votes that you need to register, not a lesser of two evils, where at the end of the day, you're still left with evil. I want to also indicate there are only 10% of the House districts challenged by Green Party. And so where there are no Green Party people on the ballot, vote for the most progressive candidates. Vote for the most progressive candidates and push this agenda and push this corporatized government of ours in the right direction. I want to thank the great staff we have, all the coordinators, the volunteers, all over the country, on hundreds of college campuses, and in the workplace, and the union local halls, and so many other gathering places. So much talent has come out, so many great ideas, so much energy, because they see an opportunity, and they want to grasp it in this election year. I want to end with a quote by Mahatma Gandhi. And I want to have you think about this very closely. And here's what he said decades ago. He listed 7 blunders of the world that lead to violence and injustice. First, wealth without work. Second, pleasure without conscience. Third, knowledge without character. Fourth, commerce without morality. Fifth, science without humanity. Sixth, worship without sacrifice. And lastly, politics without principle. Thank you.
You just came in on a plane.
All right.
Okay.
Now, we have is here, and if you haven't heard Cornell West say a few words, you haven't heard Cornell West. And here he is, professor at Harvard, author of Race Matters, Cornell West.
Ralph Nader, not for sale. He's not for sale. Ralph Nader with ado. Long distance runner for justice. Grand captain of the ship of freedom, tied in for equality. Brother Ralph Nader, comrade Ralph Nader. We want the word to go forth from this place here and now that we are on the move. We will not be deterred by frightened liberals. We will not be deterred by short-sighted Republicrats. We will not be deterred by mean-spirited neoliberals. We are on the move. Why? We are on the move precisely because we believe that we are at a historic junction. And we're wrestling with a fundamental question. What are the conditions under which progressives will break with the two-party system? And we are being scapegoated, we are being demonized, sometimes every once in a while charitably criticized, but not too often. And we want to say to this nation and the world, the first conditions under which we break from the Democratic and Republican Party is that there are democratic energies being unleashed on the ground, not just in the American empire, but around the world. We're part of a global movement. A global movement around the world. It is connected to the plight of Iraqi babies. It is connected to the plight of the Mexican worker. It is connected to the plight of Kurdish brothers and sisters in Turkey and Palestinian brothers and sisters who are being shot by the occupation army of Israel. It is a global movement. It is connected to those brothers and sisters in Africa wrestling with the HIV virus. And we know if it was in London or Paris or Amsterdam, it would be on the front page of the newspaper every day. It is connected to the Colombian peasant as that area of the world is undergoing Vietnamization. Given that $1.3 billion, let us not be deceived. We are turning a corner. And that's precisely why the centrists in the Democratic Party, who more and more lack backbone, milquetoast, unable to stand up for their principles because they reduce politics to Machiavellian maneuvers and philosophic calculus of self-interest, we say, no, we're Democrats, small d. We're Democrats, small d. We're concerned with what is the relation of public interest to the most vulnerable, children, disabled, workers, black, brown, red, yellow, across the board. And it reflects the second condition, namely the utter decay and irreparable disrepair of American liberalism that can no longer be true to itself. And that's why you end up with a candidate who is unsure of who he is, not because he's evil or a demon. He just doesn't know who he is. He's been trying to please too many people at the same time. He hasn't looked deep into his soul and asked what are his principles, what are his ideals. And last but not least, we break because of the intolerable level of disrespect that progressives have been shown in the Democratic Party. If you don't deal with workers' rights, if you don't deal with wealth inequality, if you don't deal with the power of police in black and brown communities with escalating levels of police brutality and the criminal justice system, which is itself criminal, and the incarceration of too many young folk, then you're no longer a Democratic Party. That's why we break. And so let us work together, let us stay together, let us fight together. This is a moment in a movement, not just a candidacy and a campaign. We thank Ralph Nader, we thank Winona LaDuke, we thank the Green Party, but we're all in this together. Let us, right on. But I've gone too long and it's time to move to a little art. The greatest playwright in America, Eugene O'Neill, wrote a play called The Iceman Cometh, which in many ways characterizes the election in relation to the two parties. But he raised the question, what does it profit a nation to gain the whole world and lose its soul? And Martin Luther King Jr. raised the question, we're struggling for the soul of America because the vicious legacy of white supremacy and male supremacy and vast economic inequality and heterosexism is suffocating our soul. And when John Coltrane said, we need to ascend to a love supreme, he was not talking about something ephemeral. He was talking about rejuvenating democratic energies. Only when the people have power, only when the people have power, only when the people have power. Let us wrestle, let us stay together. God bless you. Sister Patty, and Brother Oliver.
My dreaming, well, of an aspect bright and fair. In my sleeping, it was broken, but my dream, it lingered near. In the farm of shining valleys, where the pure air recognized, and my senses are newly open, 'cause I awaken into the cry that the people to redeem the work of fools upon the meek, the grace to shower. Well, it's decreed, the people rule. Come on! People have the power. People have the power. People have the power. People have the power. Became suspect and bending low as if to hear, and the armies ceased advancing because the people have their ear, and the shepherds and the soldiers, where they lay beneath the stars, exchanging visions, laying arms to waste in the dust. Shining valleys where the pure air recognized, and my senses newly open, 'cause I awaken to the cry. Mom, will have the power. People have the power. People have the power. People have the power. I saw fountains, and like cream, the waters rise, and we strolled there together. We none to laugh or criticize. Where the leopard and the lamb lay together, should have owned. Well, I was hoping, in my hoping, to recall what I'd found. I was dreaming. My dreaming, God knows, a pure view, as I surrender into my sleeping. I commit my dream to you, people. People have the power. People have the power. People have the power. People have the power. The power to dream, to rule, to wrestle the world from fools. It's decreed, the people rule. It's decreed, the people rule.
People's Parade for D.C. statehood and peace. Right out front with the brass band and the citizens. Thank you.
As we continue to watch the room inside the MCI Center here in Washington, the conclusion of a 3.5-hour campaign rally put together by the Green Party here in Washington, D.C. Ralph Nader, the keynote speaker. He is on the ballot in all 50 states, and we want to get your reaction. As we continue in an all-politics weekend, the number is 202-624-1111 if you're a supporter of Governor Bush, 202-624-1115 if you're a supporter of Vice President Al Gore, and 202-737-6734 if you're a supporter of Ralph Nader. Again, 202-624-1111, 624-1115. Good morning. Where are you calling from? Hello. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Where are you calling from? Hello. You're on the air. Go ahead, please. Good afternoon. Where are you calling from? We'll continue to watch the room for a couple of minutes and get your phone calls lined up. Again, a reminder of our campaign schedule. We'll be live later today in Tampa, Florida with Governor George W. Bush. He is crisscrossing the state of Florida. He will wrap up the day in Orlando with a campaign appearance tonight. Tomorrow, Governor Bush will be in Chattanooga, Tennessee. He will also be in Green Bay, Wisconsin, Davenport, Iowa, and Bentonville, Arkansas. Vice President Al Gore will be in Waterloo, Iowa, St. Louis, Flint, Michigan, and Miami, Florida. Look at the candidate schedule. Also a reminder that you can go to our website at cspan.org for the latest information. All day tomorrow, we will have programming looking at congressional races from around the country. Also tomorrow, we'll take a look at what Speaker of the House Dennis Hastert is doing. He is in Arkansas tomorrow. President Clinton is in Arkansas today, campaigning for a number of House seats out there. And we'll also take a look at some of the Senate debates from the last couple of days in this election. Orange Park, Florida, supporter of Governor Bush. Good afternoon.
Yeah, I did. I haven't called back yet. I'm just for extra sign. I texted about Yeah, I got rid of like my Cornell right there. But I got caught.
Check the just want to make sure that
phone lines are working. The numbers are right. We'll try it again. 202-624-1111. If you're a supporter of Governor Bush, 202-624-1115 for those of you supporting Vice President Al Gore. And if you're supporting Ralph Nader, 202-737-6734, Mount Vernon, New York. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, hi. I just watched a good part of the Nader program, and I think he's a very exciting candidate. And if I were 30 years younger, I'd probably go out and vote for him. And I think it's a little scary that he can generate so much enthusiasm in the younger generation, and the other two candidates can't. And I think it's an indictment of our educational system that so many of the young people don't even understand the issues. I was watching Chris Matthews on your program the other day when he was accompanying Nader on the college tour, and he was there with Nader when Nader was saying the first thing he would do was repeal Taft-Hartley, and the kids cheered and cheered. Well, P.S., they didn't know what Taft-Hartley was. So I think we need to pay more attention to educating our children as to what our history and what the issues are, and get the two-party system working in a more energized way.
Anchorage, Alaska, you're next. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Fine, thanks. What do you think of today's events?
I think that Ralph Nader is absolutely the best man for the job. He does. He's done a lot for us in the past as far as looking out for the American people. And, you know, he's a consumer advocate. He's a civil rights advocate. And I think, I'm psyched. I want him to win.
Thanks for the call. Good afternoon. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Atlanta, Georgia.
Go ahead, please.
Well, I'm an Al Gore supporter, but it appears that George Bush has Georgia sewn up, so I'll probably be voting for Ralph Nader. One of the issues I had been following was George Bush's absence from his National Guard service, and I think with his, well, I think he was trying to cover up or not disclose his incident with the drunk driving. I think that might play into him, his honesty, and how he's been pushing the military. And I think character also plays into this. And I wish the National Guard issue had been covered a little more by the national press. Thank you.
Thank you for the call. Fresno, California is next. Supporter of Governor Bush. Good afternoon.
How you doing? Yes, I'm supporting George Bush.
Why?
Why? I could trust George Bush.
Okay, thanks for the call. East Lansing, Michigan, supporter of Vice President Al Gore. You're next. East Lansing, Michigan, you're on the air.
Oh. I don't lose a poll, like the cause for who you're supporting.
Do you have a comment on today's events, either with Vice President Gore, Governor Bush, or Ralph Nader?
Well, I'm voting for Gore.
Why?
Why? Because I don't support Bush at all. His views are just way too, and like I'm a college student, so I'm leaning way more towards Gore, because he just seems to, like, Bush doesn't seem like he's doing much for education and things like that, and, you know, affirmative action and stuff like that. That's what I'm looking at, those kind of issues that I look at.
Okay, thanks for the call. Easton, Connecticut is next. Go ahead, please.
I'm a Nader supporter. After seeing this program, I'm definitely a Nader supporter.
Why is that? What did you see this afternoon that made you convinced to vote for Ralph Nader?
Well, everything he stands for. Getting the boat back afloat. I think we're starting to sink.
Okay, thanks for the call. Good afternoon. Where are you calling from?
Wisconsin.
Go ahead, please.
I find it interesting that Gore has been making the same promises that the Democratic Party has made the last two presidential elections, and they haven't seemed to accomplish one of those. I can't believe that that hasn't been an issue in this election, that the Bush campaign hasn't brought that up. I just get tired of hearing the same promises, but what have they done? They haven't accomplished one thing that they promised to do the last two presidential elections. And Gore continues along the same path. They feel like, well, it's working, so let's continue with these lies and these promises that we have no intention of accomplishing.
Okay, thanks for the call, Salt Lake City, supporter of Governor Bush. Good afternoon.
Actually, I'm supporting Ralph Nader, but the number wouldn't work. I tried it like over and over. But yeah, I'd just like to say I think he's the best guy for the job. He actually cares about real issues rather than corporate rhetoric that we see over and over from the two other parties.
How old are you?
24.
And who did you vote for 4 years ago? Do you remember?
I voted for Clinton last year and was extremely disappointed with the Clinton administration.
Thanks.
Mostly in the way that they've trashed our civil liberties, and I was disgusted with the flag-burning legislation that was pushed this year, and that the right of women to choose barely even passed a few months ago. So I'm very excited about Nader and hope he gets enough votes so that he can get more funding next year and possibly win at the next election in 4 years from now.
Thanks for the call. Durand, Michigan is next. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm from Durand, Michigan. I'm a 55-year-old voter here, and I wanted to make a comment about a frustration about the media coverage, which has not evidently taken the effort to look into the implications of the privatization of Social Security. The one thing that I'm curious about, and if C-SPAN can do this, I'd be delighted, to find out what Mr. Bush means when he says that anyone who is near retirement will not have their benefits changed. We don't know what near retirement means. There's been no explanation as to whether we're talking about people who are 2 days away from retirement or 2 weeks or 2 years. We have no idea what this privatization plan consists of, and we're being asked to vote without all the information we need to make a decision as to whether the Bush plan makes sense for everybody.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Ann Arbor, Michigan, you're next. Supporter of Ralph Nader. Good afternoon.
Hi, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Your thought today?
Yes. What's your question?
No, we're trying to get reaction on this All Politics Weekend. You're on the air.
Ralph Nader is the most experienced, the most honest, and the most principled guy in the whole lot. And I support him 100%.
Thanks for...
He can take our country back to what it is supposed to be.
Thanks, caller. This morning, the New York Times, in its look at the election, also takes a look at the Electoral College map and breaks down a couple of key states, including Pennsylvania, which, according